Welcome back, and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Now we want to dive into a conversation, and joining me for this particular conversation is Honorable Dr. Jeff Kaluyu, who is a UCP party leader. He was equally a presidential aspirant in 2017. Good evening, Dr. and thank you so much for making time for us here on KTN Prime. Now, straight to it, you are one of the people who advocated for Kenya to be taken back to where it was economically, socially, and politically under the banner, We the People. Looking at the events that took place in the past 1 month or so, what is your take?
Well, first, thank you for having me, KTN, Ashley. And I'm happy to be on board. And I bring you greetings from Political Party Liaison Committee, all the members. They are happy to watch you. Regarding the We the People movement, this is very important. And it relates even to Gen Z. Before the Gen Z, in January 13th this year, we launched the We the People movement. And our cry was very clear that the cost of living was very high. The jobs were not there. The economic growth was slow. Corruption was rampant. I wanted to be the end of corruption. Taxation needed to come down. I believed in money in people's pocket. And diaspora needed to be part of the take on the table. So it was very important that we started that in January. We saw this 6 months ago, but now about a month ago, Gen Z, they saw this too. We come from different angles, but we have met. That is why I'm inviting them to join my platform, We the People movement. It started about a year ago. We launched it. We are on the forward march. We will crisscross this country to every county, to every city, and we want to touch every single life. And we move forward. We the People movement is about recognizing that leadership is practical and it is also local. If a leader has done something for you, then you need to be able to reciprocate by voting for that particular leader. There's a lot of theories around everywhere. And we want leaders who are practical, who can do work, who can be able to associate with people's dreams, challenges, aspirations, and understand what they are doing on the ground. So We the People is about a big umbrella where Aslas are involved, where Agnios are in, where the people of Kenya are in, rich, poor, and of all orientations. So we bring all the forward, including Gen Z, is part of We the People movement.
Okay, looking at some of the things that you've mentioned is some of the issues that the Gen Z are advocating for, such as good governance, accountability, dealing with corruption and the employment issue. And you've mentioned the fact that we need practical leaders. So then my question is, was there a need to form a broad-based government in order for us to achieve these issues that the Gen Zs are advocating for?
We want to be able, if you look at different orientations in terms of political associations or formations, majority of the things that they advocate for, they are the same. What Kenya wants today and would like to have is accountable leaders and people we can trust. People who, once they say something, they go forward and do it when they are in government. There is this common theory that you can promise people heaven and earth, but when you get into government, you do whatever you want. We want to make that as history or be a part of footnote in the history of Kenya. We want people we can trust who they mean what they say. And I want to be part of that movement where we want to promise people. I have a lot of experience, international experience, local experience in terms of politics. And I know there is a different kind of Kenya that can exist rather than a Kenya that we are used to suffering. And then we find the best person or citizen is who knows how to deal with suffering a lot. We don't have to suffer. There's a different kind of Kenya we can aspire for. Kenya where we can be able to feed our children. We have shelter, create wealth, have jobs, and this is all practical. So it doesn't have to be a far-fetched dream. So when it comes to a government, I know I can be trusted because I don't know how to be bribed. I don't know corruption. I'm not part of any cartel. And I would like to form that. That's why I formed that umbrella way before the Gen Z. So Gen Z, because currently they are saying that they are leaders. They do not have a person who leads them or any sort of that. But it is almost in democracy, almost impossible to negotiate with the government. Not negotiate to be part of the government, but to negotiate for the things you can do for the Kenyan people. You need leadership in that end. And because I was there before they were, I invite them to join me because I have a platform. I'm a political party leader, Unified Change Party, or UCP. Yes.
And just, looking at the revolutions that have occurred, not just in Kenya, but worldwide, yeah? I just want us to tap into your diaspora experience. How have revolutions impacted governance, not just in Kenya, but looking at it from a broad perspective?
The diaspora, and yes, there's that brain drain, but sometimes brain drain is not necessarily a bad thing. But we need to bring Kenyans back to come and participate in our governance. But the worldwide experience that we have, we get to know. I went to school abroad. I live in Kenya now. I work internationally. I just come back home. I just work further than Nairobi. But we get the experience. We get to travel different parts of the world. We get to see what good governance is about. I have lived in first world, that is United States of America, in Washington, D.C. I have seen government work. I have seen democracy work where there is opposition, where there is government and they cannot be together. There is, in democracy, there's supposed to be opposition to check the excesses of the government. You do not have to be fighting. What I realized in Africa across and some other third world countries is that the opposition has to be fighting the government. And I have said clearly that opposition needs to have a plan by itself. And that's why we have the 6-point plan. And we have given our 6-point plan because if we are going to play the part of opposition, and in my launch, I declare to be the opposition leader because right now, the government and the previous opposition, they are already in bed together. That cannot be part of democracy because someone needs to be taking the excesses of the government. But it may be a good thing that now I'm leading the opposition. The reason is that opposition does not have to be always fighting the government. They need to be able to negotiate some things so that they can do things that benefit the Kenyan people. And therefore, the previous opposition was fighting the government. They were always breaking things and running in the streets and people killing people. That doesn't have to be. We can debate, we can argue and prosecute the case for the Kenyan people without having to drop a single bullet. And therefore, we can organize the people around with the people movement, given the international experience that I've had all across the world, and be able to be a formidable force in 2027. Two things. There are only two things. We either be the government or we decide who becomes the government, because we will stay together as a movement. And therefore, if we are not in the government, we will determine who becomes the government and the presidency. And also we have as many members of parliament as possible. So we will tap into the international experience. And I have worked with the states, I have worked with the government, I have done work for the government. I have worked in Wall Street, where we do things that deal with world economics. I understand the world economics. I'm an MBA finance and economics. After that, I went to medical school 5.5 years to be a researcher, medical researcher. And therefore, I understand a lot of things that deal with the government. This is not just theoretical. I've been a university dean. I've been a professor. I've written books. I've been a TV and radio host. So I have a wide range of experience. When it comes to qualification, to experience, I am ready to compete using my worldwide experience, and I will tap into diaspora so that they can support the and world friends.
So with your vast experience then, where does this leave us and the place of democracy on this negotiated political environment that we're in currently?
That is why I have already declared that I will be the opposition leader. The thing is that in democracy, the word democracy itself, there have to be, people who oppose and the people who govern. To oppose is to only for excesses of the government. We have to be courageous enough to say when Dr. Ruto, the president, when he's right, we can tell him he's right. We have to be courageous enough. To be in the opposition doesn't mean we have to be insulting the government, to be saying everything is wrong. But when it goes wrong or it goes against what is right, we should be also brave enough to tell him, Mr. President, using the right language, that this is not the right thing to do. So there has to be an opposition. Government and opposition cannot be in the same bed, because if it goes to the trenches or they go in the wrong way, everything goes in the wrong way and there's nobody to correct it. There's nobody who is right, including the government. And therefore, I've always said, the opposition, their agenda or their manifesto cannot be about insulting a president. It cannot be just about calling names, causing chaos. If you have to have the brain power to argue, to debate, to prosecute the case for the Kenyan people, I am ready for debate, and I'm asking if we can start the debates today, so that we can be able to debate every 2 months till elections.
And I believe that debate has already been started by the Gen Z. And of course, looking at the protests and their Nane march that, well, most say was not successful. Do you think now that the government is banking on the broad-based government, do you think this is the calm before the storm? Or are Kenyans just okay and moving on? Because most of them seem dissatisfied.
It is, governance is a continuous concern that keeps on going forward, whether we are there or not. The fight for the rights of the Kenyan people no one can be tired of it. We can't say, we are tired of fighting, we are just going to go together in whichever direction we go. No, I don't believe that we are going to have just one broad-based government, because there has to be a person out there correcting the government. If it is one way, it is not democracy. Kenya is a democracy. So we are declaring clearly that I will be the opposition leader. I'm ready to argue. We don't have to fight. No bloodshed, no single bullet has to fly. But we can bring a strong argument and the rights for the Kenyan people. For example, I say that the ballot is secret. I will hold IEBC to account to make sure there is enough civic education, where we tell the people the ballot has no name, the ballot has no photograph, it has no ID. Even if you took how much money from me, I will never get to know who you voted for. And therefore, we must educate our masses so that they can know their right, and also to have a contract with the leaders so that they can do things for you. If the leader is not doing something for you, he is not doing the right thing for you. We have to look at the leaders who exist. They have history. If you have been in leadership for a long time, we need to be able to assess you. We can use Gen Z. They are very active and quick on the feet. They are able to do statistics and do history. I've seen them do that. And we can be able to analyze every single leader. And we give red card to those who have been in leadership and they haven't done anything for people. There are also other options. If you are governor or member of parliament, you can be recalled. We don't have to wait for 5 years. You can be recalled if you have not done what you're supposed to do. But we have witnessed where there is no contract with the Kenyan people. So the leaders tend to do things for us that they feel they are good for us. But those are just bonuses. I say we ask them what we want. They make a contract with us. And the next time they come to ask for votes, we check them and we tell them, you haven't done this, we haven't done this, red card. We cannot even argue for it. So there is a lot of civic education that is supposed to be happening, and political parties, they need to be part of it, because They are widespread. They can do this civic education. And I know PLC, which is Political Party Liaison Committee, they have a civic committee, civic education committee, and they need to kick their engines raving and teach people or the citizens more about their rights, their voting rights, and how to choose a leader. And that's what we need today, a trusted leader, an accountable leader.
The reason why I asked that particular question is because there are hints of the planned reintroduction of some of the tax measures from the Finance Bill 2024. I mean, this is what got us to this particular point. And here we are seeing that, people are actually, or leaders rather, are thinking of going back to where we came from.
My position is that we should let the waters calm down, because we do not want to reproduce what we have seen with Gen Z. The country is in turmoil. Remember, in the last 1 month or 2 months, there hasn't been a lot of businesses happening because the Gen Z have been on the streets. Anytime they're on the streets, the businesses are closed. The economy has lost. That means the jobs are being lost. That also help the Gen Z. We need to trend. Remember, it's the government of the people for the people. In other words, whatever people say is what we must follow. We cannot impose or force them to think a particular way. So we want to listen to the people, and we want to put brakes a little bit on the measures of Finance Bill 2024, which I personally firmly said that I was against. And there are ways, and I asked President Ruto, we have been in Wall Street. We are very experienced people. We don't have to be in the government, but as consultants, even for free for the government, we understand economics very well. We understand finance very well. We can come together and we can be able to give advisory for the benefit of the Kenyan people. There needs to be those experts and then also political people. But you cannot make political people experts, because the whole thing will be twisted. It will be wobbly, but there needs to be experts. We understand all those things, and we can be able to give the government with fairness to the right thing. Look at NADCO. NADCO is the one that bore all this Gen Z because they were supposed to come to the cost of living. Cost of living was very high, and therefore there was no negotiation, and it was not spoken about. We cannot ignore some of these things. We can also not ignore the forces of economy. We have limited resources. We can use those limited resources in a very impactful way. Maybe the government, I think, is too big. There's a lot of wage bill. We can do more things, even retire some people, and they can go start businesses with packages, or even retire them earlier. And therefore, we reduce the workforce and encourage the business part of it, the growth, raise the engines of economics. And we can be a leader. We can make Kenya a gateway to Africa. We can make it the fastest growing economy in Africa. And we can be an example to the world that we can be able to make it with integrity, because democracy is real, governance is real, and we cannot play around with it. I'm ready for duty when it comes to those things. And if President Ruto wants experts for free, not to join the government, but for free so that Kenya can be in the right path, I think many other people are ready to help the government.
All right, I think that's a really good place to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeff Kaluyu, of course, for sharing some of your, expertise and nuggets of wisdom. He is the UCP party leader, and that's how we wrap things up here on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ashley Mazuri. Our sign language interpreter was Marisha Witi. Have a good night.